First job out of college was working at a janitorial services company, and I was definitely a very hard worker like in my early days. I was working full-time at this janitorial services company, and then part-time I was working at Sephora, and I loved it. I loved working at Sephora so much, but I knew I couldn't pay like my student loans back with that Sephora money, so I just did it part-time. And I would leave my job at 5 p.m., get into my Sephora clothes, and go straight to Sephora from 6 to 9. My first job out of college paid me $12.50 an hour. And I was there for about a year. I had gotten promoted and changed teams, but like genuinely could do this job in my sleep. I was probably working 10 hours a week and then watching Netflix the rest of the time. And I even told my boss like, hey, like this is just not enough work for me. So they gave me more work. It still wasn't enough. So in the talks of me getting another promotion, my boyfriend at the time, who was absolutely awful, but I owe him so much for this, he was interviewing at a staffing agency called Insight Global, and he referred me for the job, and he didn't get it, but I did. And it was one of those staffing agencies where you just had to be like young and pretty. They got people right out of college. And my base salary was $31,000 a year, and you don't get commission until you're there for, I believe, 6 months. So for 6 months, I was working like 50 to 60 hours a week because it was a sales position. So 50 to 60 hours a week because you have to prove that you're worthy of getting promoted for $31,000 a year. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. We would come on the weekends and everything. You started with like a cohort, and me and these people in this cohort still keep in touch because we can't believe we like allowed ourselves to be hazed like that. This is when I found out that staffing and recruiting was a multi-billion-dollar industry that most people just slept on. I didn't know what recruiting was. So when I got the job and I learned everything about recruiting, I realized I liked the people aspect more than the sales aspect, because there were people making, most of the people in that office were making 6 figures, and there was one who was making almost $400,000 a year, which I thought was so insane. But I didn't want to be a salesperson. I'm not a good salesperson. So if someone says no to me, I'm like, okay, moving on to the next. I knew a staffing agency wasn't where I belonged. It wasn't my ministries.